right, Conor McGregor, Cowboy Cerrone, official. Now, I realize that this was one of the sport's worst kept secrets, but until the announcement comes out, there was really no room to celebrate. Look, we had so many of the clues. A show is announced, a venue is booked, a date is given. Conor says he wants to do it. Dana comes out and says, great, we'll put a whole show here for you. I enter all of these different things. Rumors that John Jones and Reyes are going to be on the card. Then there was a real fun dialogue. Well, if John Jones and Reyes fight on the same card, who's the main event? Right, when Conor's the main draw, but Jones is the champion and at a heavier weight, who's the main event? Okay, fun, exciting, good problems to have. But you have to understand, for the last number of months, Conor McGregor, every time there's a pay-per-view and somebody gets a win that happens to be 155 pounds, he goes on social media and calls him out. So there became a little bit of a numbing process. One thing that we always had with Conor is when Conor said something, that was it. I mean, he was a man of his word to the highest of levels. Now, I don't imply for you that Conor's ever gone out and been against his word. He just started using a whole bunch of words, so it started to become really hard on what to rely on. And then he had this Frankie Edgar angle for a meaningful period of time where he's working this Frankie Edgar gimmick. Frankie's on his way down to 135 and thinks about reversing course and going all the way to 55 to get this fight. But it was one of those where people just weren't really understanding it, right? And then Conor even comes and shares, look, I talked to Dana about the fight, and Dana said, no, we don't want to do the Frankie fight. That's just not going to work. So these were a lot of clues, but Conor was staying on Frankie. Now, I have to remind you, 5 months ago, roughly, Cowboy flew out to Australia to do what's called a Q&A. Now, a Q&A is simply where he gets on stage, he has a microphone, and fans can ask him questions. But as part of this Q&A, Cowboy was flown to Australia to make the announcement that he was going to be fighting Conor McGregor. This was agreed on in principle. They had a date. This was done. Something happened on Conor's side of things, whether it had to do with what the tabloids were saying or whether, some issue he had in Ireland. There was never a total clarity, but he was out. He was out to the point that Cowboy not only fought once, he fought twice since then. And off the top of my head, he might have fought as many as 3 times. I remember he fought Al, he fought Tony, he fought Gaethje. Was that all in the time period of the last 5 or 6 months? So now that they're finally going to get matched up, and it's always hard to see, because don't forget, when Conor says it's red panty night to fight me, it's a celebration. That's true. That is a mega fight. And Dana will change your participation outside of your contract. He just will. He'll look at it and go, it's the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. Here's what you get. So when Conor says it's a celebration, not only is that a funny line, but there's a lot of truth to that. So to see a guy like Cowboy, who deserves something great to happen to him, who's put in many years, many wins, done a lot of heavy lifting, have something great happen to him like the celebration that Conor puts in, and then have the carpet ripped out. Oh, as a fan, that hurts. It's hard to see. Cowboy goes, he does more heavy lifting. He goes in there with Al. He goes in there with Tony. He goes in there with Gaethje. By the way, all of those main events. So by the way, all scheduled for 5 rounds. By the way, one of them went 5. I mean, he put in a lot of rounds. Live. Aside from what he did in training. So for him to then be given that opportunity back is really a great thing, right? It's one of those, okay, good. Glad that this happened. As far as the fight and the X's and O's go of it, I'm going to tell you right now, Conor is going to go off as a favorite and likely a heavy favorite, and you guys might want to take a look at that, okay? Understand one thing. The fight is scheduled for 5 rounds. If Conor has ever had a flaw in his career, and he hasn't had very many, but he's been open to admit it, he gets tired. To make believe that you could come off of a layoff that he's been off of, and yes, he'll be looking for the finish, and he'll be looking for that left hand, and he'll be looking at Cowboy out of there. I understand that, but he did the same thing with Nate Diaz, and when he found out that Nate could take a punch, all of a sudden you're in the later rounds, and all of a sudden you're out of energy. I do feel in many ways the miscalculation here is to walk back into a 5-round fight. But for today, we could celebrate. Conor and Cowboy is going to happen.
There's no one like Uncle Chael, the man who tells one hell of a tale. You want the facts, then listen in. He's got the biggest arms in Westland. He's calling out a stack of crap. We know damn well that Tito tapped. Cause what you see is what you get, and what you don't is better yet. He's the bad guy. go.